Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that, well, feels increasingly relevant, almost unavoidable.
Major power outages.
Yeah, exactly. And forget that old idea that these are just, problems for somewhere else. The reality is, even right here in the U.S., we've apparently seen over 200 significant grid disturbances just this year, 2024.
It really makes you stop and think. It's shifted, hasn't it, from maybe a background worry to something that can genuinely mess up daily life.
Totally. And it's driven by all sorts of things. Crazy weather, our grid getting older.
Right.
And it strikes right at the core of how we live now. Especially, look at our phones. We're practically attached to them.
It's almost symbiotic.
Yeah. Think about your morning. Your alarm goes off on your phone.
Yeah.
Check the news on your phone. Maybe scroll social media.
Wraps to get somewhere, paying for coffee.
Staying in touch. They're just central.
And it's not just convenience anymore, is it? That's the fascinating part. Phones are now plugged into really essential stuff. Managing money, getting help in emergencies.
It's like a fundamental layer of how things work now.
It really is.
So the big question we're diving into is pretty stark. What actually happens when that layer just disappears? When the power cuts out and our digital lifeline starts to, fade?
And for you listening, how does a big blackout really impact your day when that battery icon is dropping fast and there's no working outlet anywhere?
Okay, let's unpack this. What are the first things to go wrong for our smartphones when the grid fails?
Well, the first and most obvious one is you can't recharge. Simple as that.
Right. Instant panic mode for most people.
Definitely triggers that urgency. You see the percentage drop and you know how much you rely on that device. But it's actually more than just a low battery warning.
Yeah, because even if you've got, say, 50% charge left, you might still lose your signal, right? Your cell service. Why does that happen? Cell towers aren't running on hopes and dreams, I guess.
No, not quite. They need a lot of consistent power. Now, they do usually have backup generators.
Okay.
But those aren't built for, days and days of outage.
Right.
They run on fuel, and that fuel runs out.
Okay. So in a really big, long blackout, the backups can fail, too.
Precisely. Leaving you totally cut off. No calls, no mobile data, nothing.
And then almost instantly with the power cut, your home Wi-Fi is gone.
Immediately.
So all that stuff we just assume works streaming, browsing websites, checking social feeds, just stops.
Vanishes. It's kind of like being thrown back in time, but without even the old landline maybe working.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of disconnect.
And that lack of connection ripples outwards. Think about GPS.
Oh, right. Maps.
Real-time location.
Yeah.
Turn-by-turn directions.
Yeah.
They just stop working properly, which honestly can be surprisingly confusing if you're not sure where you are.
Or trying to get somewhere specific during an emergency, maybe check on someone.
Exactly.
Okay, now here's where it gets, well, frankly, a bit scary. Our sources really flagged this one. Emergency alerts.
Ah, yes. The ones that pop up on our phones.
If your phone is dead, you just don't get them.
That is a critical point. We've become so used to getting vital info, weather warnings, safety instructions, that a major outage could leave a lot of people completely in the dark, literally and figuratively, dangerously unaware.
Which has got to affect how emergency services coordinate, too.
Absolutely. It makes their job much, much harder.
And the impact doesn't stop with just communication or getting alerts, right? Long outages start messing with the whole digital setup we rely on.
Oh, completely. Think about mobile banking. Paying for things on the go.
Ride-sharing apps. Getting an Uber or Lyft.
Gone. Food delivery apps. Same problem.
Wow.
When the grid is down for a while, all these digital services we lean on just freeze. It basically halts a huge chunk of modern life in the economy.
The sources really bring this home with some real-world cases. Let's talk about Texas, February 2021, that huge winter storm. What did that show us?
Oh, that was catastrophic. It really laid bare how vulnerable we are. The grid failed massively. Millions lost power in freezing cold.
I remember seeing the pictures. Awful.
And people couldn't charge their phones. Then, as the backup power at cell towers started failing...
Networks went down.
Exactly. Communication just evaporated. Emergency lines were jammed. Whole neighborhoods were digitally cut off right when they needed help and information the most. It wasn't just inconvenient. For some, it was genuinely life-threatening.
A really stark example. Okay, then there's Japan, 2024, after an earthquake. What was the lesson there?
Japan was interesting because it showed a slightly different angle. Again, massive power cuts. People couldn't access the usual safety update apps on their phones.
Right, the things they'd normally rely on.
But what was really highlighted was the kind of surprising usefulness of older tech.
Like what?
Battery-powered FM radios.
Yeah.
Even printed paper maps.
Seriously. Old school radio.
Yeah. They became genuine lifelines for getting official news and updates when the digital stuff failed. Kind of makes you think about redundancy, not having all your communication eggs in that one digital basket.
That's a powerful point. Sometimes the simple, tried and tested stuff is still incredibly important. Okay, so knowing these weaknesses, what tech solutions are out there to help us keep our phones going or at least stay connected somehow? And, what are the catches?
Well, there are a few things. Power banks are probably the most common. Portable batteries.
Gotta have one of those.
Definitely. And it's worth getting a decent high-capacity one, maybe like 20,000 milliamp hours. Yeah. Enough for a few charges. Okay. But the obvious limitation is you have to remember to keep the power bank itself charged up. Eventually, it runs out too.
Right. It buys you time, but it's not infinite. What about solar chargers? They seem like the perfect off-grid solution.
They have a big advantage that they don't need the grid at all. That's great. But they can be really slow to charge a phone. And obviously, you need decent sunlight for them to work at all.
So more for keeping a phone topped up rather than a quick full charge.
Exactly. Think of it as extending the life you have, not a rapid refill.
Makes sense. The source material also really emphasizes preparing ahead by downloading offline apps.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Downloading maps for your area so you can navigate without data.
Like Google Maps offline feature.
Yeah, exactly. Or dedicated offline map apps. Also, maybe downloading survival guides, first aid info, even like a language tool if that's relevant.
Stuff that lives directly on your phone, no internet needed.
Precisely. It's about being proactive, thinking ahead before the outage hits.
And what about those modes on our phones? Low power mode, airplane mode. Are they actually useful beyond just stretching the battery on a normal day?
They become really important during a blackout. Knowing how to quickly switch them on, maybe even practicing, it can make a huge difference.
How so?
They basically shut down all the non-essential stuff running in the background that drains your battery, constant app updates, location checks, push notifications. It squeezes out every last drop of power.
Okay, good tip. Now, we're also seeing things like portable Wi-Fi routers. Some use satellites or create mesh networks. Are those realistic options for staying online?
They offer potential, yes. Satellite communicators can send basic texts or SOS messages, even without cell service. Mesh networks let nearby devices connect directly.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
Well, they can be expensive. Satellite services usually need a subscription, and the reliability isn't always guaranteed, especially in a massive disaster scenario. Coverage can be spotty. Mesh needs other users nearby with compatible devices that are also powered on.
So maybe useful in some specific situations, but not a magic bullet for everyone.
Pretty much. They're not a universally accessible or totally foolproof answer.
And then it almost feels funny saying it in 2024, but the source material comes back around to the battery-powered radio.
The humble FM radio, yes. It sounds low-tech, maybe even ancient. But if the internet is down and cell service is out, that simple radio can be your only link to official broadcasts, emergency updates, critical information. It just works. Proven reliability.
It's clear that what we do individually matters a lot, preparing ourselves. But what about the bigger picture? Are governments, power companies, are they doing anything about this? Making the grid stronger?
There's definitely a growing awareness, a recognition that the grid needs serious upgrades.
Like what kind of things?
We're seeing more investment in smart grids. That means using digital tech to better monitor electricity flow, manage demand, and hopefully isolate problems faster to reduce the scale of outages.
Okay.
There's also a lot of work happening with artificial intelligence, using AI to try and predict where failures might happen before they occur.
Really? How does that work?
By analyzing huge amounts of data weather patterns, equipment age, past failures, sensor readings, AI might spot warning signs that humans would miss.
The sources mention the U.S. Department of Energy specifically, and some international stuff too.
Yeah, the DOE is putting serious funding into grid modernization projects focused on resilience, making it tougher. And countries like Japan and Germany are actually testing out some of these AI prediction tools already, trying to get ahead of the curve.
That sounds promising, but the source seemed to add a note of caution too.
Definitely. It's crucial to understand these are massive, complex, long-term undertakings. Upgrading a national grid isn't like flipping a switch. It takes years, decades even, and huge amounts of money.
Right. It's not going to be fixed overnight.
Not at all. And in the meantime, the things stressing the grid, especially extreme weather linked to climate change, They aren't waiting. They're happening now and getting more intense.
So while they work on the big fixes, the risk is still very real for all of us right now.
Absolutely. Which brings us back to personal preparedness.
Okay, so let's make this really practical for everyone listening. What are the key concrete steps you should take, maybe starting today, to get your smartphone ready for a potential blackout?
Okay, number one, most basic thing. Make charging proactively a habit. Especially if there's bad weather forecast or some other potential risk. Charge everything, phone, tablet, power banks, rechargeable flashlights. Get them all to 100%.
Don't wait until the lights flicker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, that power bank we talked about. Keep it charged. Don't just buy one and throw it in a drawer.
Yeah.
Make it part of your regular routine to ensure it's ready to go. A dead power bank is useless.
Good point. What else?
Have a simple plan for how you'll communicate with family or key contacts if phone calls aren't working. Maybe agree that text messages are the first thing to try, as they often get through when calls fail due to network congestion. A simple check-in plan.
Like, text me you're okay at these times, sort of thing.
Yeah, something basic like that. Then during an actual outage, you have to be ruthless about saving battery.
Turn everything non-essential off. Airplane mode, maybe.
Definitely use low power mode. Maybe airplane mode if you don't immediately need connectivity. Resist that urge to constantly check news feeds or scroll social media. Only use the phone for essential communication or accessing that critical info you hopefully downloaded offline.
Preserve that power. And when we do need information during the outage, where should we turn? The internet might be full of rumors.
That's critical. Stick to verified, official sources. Don't rely on forwarded messages or random social media posts, which can spread misinformation quickly in a crisis.
So who are the good sources?
FEMA, the American Red Cross, your local emergency management agency, the National Weather Service. These organizations provide reliable updates and instructions. Tune in to that battery-powered FM radio for local news broadcasts, too.
Avoid the rumor mill. Stick to the facts.
Absolutely vital.
Okay, this has been a really useful deep dive. So I guess pulling it all together, the main message seems to be that our smartphones, as amazing as they are, have this fundamental vulnerability.
They're totally dependent on electricity.
Right. And that electricity supply is maybe less guaranteed than we'd like to think sometimes.
Precisely. Our digital lives are woven into the power grid in ways we often just don't notice until that connection breaks. And a power outage really exposes how reliant and maybe fragile that connection can be.
So the big takeaway then for everyone listening is really about taking responsibility for your own preparedness, planning ahead.
Yeah, it's not about ditching the tech. Smartphones are incredibly useful tools, even in an outage if you can keep them powered and have the right info downloaded. It's about understanding their limits and having solid backup plans, analog and digital backups.
A few simple steps now can really make a huge difference if, or maybe when, the power goes out. Staying informed, connected, and safe.
Absolutely.
All right, on that note, maybe a final thought for you to chew on. When was the last time you actually had to do something, find your way somewhere, contact someone, even just entertain yourself using a completely non-digital analog tool, something you now just automatically use your phone for? Thinking about those older ways might give us some interesting perspective as we navigate this increasingly electrified and sometimes uncertain world. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.